Are you totally different when it comes to sex and copulation? Have you judged yourself out of receiving pleasure? Have you judged yourself into receiving pleasure in certain ways and excluded other ways? Would you like to know more about what else is possible with bodies? Would you like to create confidence in the bedroom and beyond? How has your sex life or lack of it affected other areas of your life? Everyone has the potency to be a sexual superhero. Get ready to listen, sense, and play with the sexualness that is you. Now, here's the host of The Pleasure Zone, pleasure diva and body whisperer, Milica Jelenic.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and I am so glad that I have all you wonderful pleasure seekers on with me tonight. How fun. I actually get to have my lover in bed with me while I do this show. How's it get any better than that? It doesn't happen very often. I think it's happened like once before in the last 3 years, and that wasn't for the whole show. So I'm very excited. If I get overly turned on and distracted, it's all good. Tonight's topic is going to be on hedonism. How could I not get distracted, right? And what possessed me to talk about that? Well, this is the Pleasure Zone, guys, and we do talk about pleasure. Hedonism is pleasure, by the way. And what actually inspired this topic was somebody that came to me for a private session recently. The person who came was actually curious whether I would facilitate classes for couples in hedonism. Naturally, my first inkling was to say, what? But my first thing out of my mouth was, yes, I'm working on that right now, actually. I'll have one out shortly. So this is actually an introduction to what is going to be coming up in those classes. I haven't written down like a formal arrive at 7:30 p.m., take your pants off. I haven't written any of that down, but I do have some ideas, and I'm really curious what the energy brings up tonight with everybody listening in the future, everybody who contributed to the creation of this from all time, space, and dimension. I'm really curious what information will come up about this, and also to explore what is hedonism. So I'm curious for me what that is as well. One of my greatest joys in life is to work with bodies and to give bodies pleasure. That can be in any way possible. I was talking to a friend today and having a good laugh. I was telling him about these classes, and he said, "Well, what do you mean? Like people are just gonna come into classes, and you think they're just gonna be okay with getting naked or getting turned on?" Or I'm like, well, they don't have to be naked to be hedonists, and you don't have to be naked to have an orgasm. And he's like, I don't understand it. I said, you don't have to understand it. It's okay. You don't have to understand it. And I was explaining that one of my greatest desires on the planet is to be more of the conductor of orgasms. I truly be. And if I were to give myself a new name and a new title, what I would like to call myself is the hedonist whisperer, conductor of orgasms. So I am actually giving myself that title. And for me, that's really fun to play with, because orgasmic energy is the creative energy, the creative forces of life. And when we invite ourselves to have that, we can flow that out to all areas of our life. So when you're actually choosing orgasmic energy, you don't have to contain it and only have it show up in your sex life or when you're copulating. You can have that orgasmic energy be part of basically your molecular structure. It can make up who you are so that your body can heal faster, your body can laugh harder, your body can screw better. It can do so many things that if we don't invite that energy to be present and alive and awake in our bodies diminish, they get tired, they get bored, they get sick. And we talked about that a few weeks ago when I talked about does lack of sex make you sick? Can it make you actually sick if you can have your body heal with sex, can you also have your body diminish without it? And so that was an interesting topic. I think that was 2 or 3 weeks ago. So check that topic out if that's kind of curious to you. And just the whole idea of inviting people to a more pleasurable life has been so part of my fantasy desire probably since I was aware of my own genitals, which was pretty young. I do remember kind of discovering the magic of the clitoris when I was like 4, and it's never really been out of my awareness that pleasure is something that is something really real to me that I'd like to both gift people more awareness about. But I do remember, and this is like it's such a bizarre and weird, maybe, I guess it's like not a comparison, but anyway, it's an example, I suppose. So I think when I was about 13 or 14 years old, I was watching Monty Python's The Meaning of Life. And you wouldn't think that those comical kings would have influenced anything sexual in my life, but they did. So there is actually a scene in the Monty Python's Meaning of Life where there's a classroom of young boys, and their teacher just decides to give them a full frontal lecture on how babies are made. So he brings in his wife, a bed falls off the wall, and the teacher and the wife are having a very casual conversation while having sex in front of the class. And I don't know what that was. When I was 13, I watched it and I was like, fuck, that's what I want to do. I want to teach people how to have sex. That's what I want to do. I'd been listening to Sex with Sue probably at that point. And so for those of you who are not born and raised in Canada in the 1980s and 90s, you might not know who Sex with Sue was. Sex with Sue was one of my greatest inspirations for this show. She had a show on Sunday nights. It was called Sunday Night Sex with Sue. And she educated me on things that no parent would ever want to have a discussion with their child about unless that parent was me or Sue or maybe my friend Rhonda, who's producing tonight, who's probably had very casual conversations like this with her son. So, or maybe not, but she could. And so Sue was such an inspiration to me. I totally adore her, and the fact that she was so not an obvious sex symbol. She was just like this woman who had knowledge, and it was her knowledge that was like so sexy, and her willingness to just be informative and just talk about any topic wholeheartedly was like, yes, sure, have anal sex, just remember to lube it up. Like, she's so casual about it, and just adored her and just found her like brilliant and fascinating. And I listened to her for years every Sunday night, and it was really funny. So growing up, listening to this was on a radio station in Toronto, Ontario in Canada, Q107 on Monday nights. I think it would start around 7 or 8 p.m. in the evening Eastern Standard, and that was kind of what inspired the timeline of this show to be at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard, was the Sex with Sue being around 8 p.m. Eastern Standard. So I turn on my radio, which I didn't have a headset for, and I would sneak a listen in on Sue. Well, one day I think I got up from my bed, and I went to the bathroom during a Sex with Sue show, and I realized that as I walked down the hall, my mom was listening to Sex with Sue, my brother was listening to Sex with Sue, and we're all listening to Sex with Sue quietly in our rooms, trying to make it as quiet as possible, hiding the fact that we were all curious little monkeys and wanted to know more. And it was kind of at that point that I realized, wow, Sue talks to everyone. She's not just talking to me. She's talking to moms and dads. She's talking to brothers. She's talking to boys and girls. Wow, Sue's not just, for some reason, I always thought it was like a private, almost like a private conversation. I knew she was on the radio, but some part of me was like, I'm having a private conversation with Sue. And then I started to realize, oh, and I think I had a conversation with a friend at school, and I was like, did you know there's a show on Q107, and there's a sex show, and blah, and it was like this big revelation that I wasn't the only one listening to this sex show, and I had friends that were listening to it, and it was like, whoa, people like talking about sex, and I was like, I like talking about sex, but it's so awkward to talk about sex when you're 13 years old, and you're curious and you're wondering, so you listen to Sex with Sue to find out more information, right? And yeah, I love that woman, and what an inspiration. And so she really, and Dr. Ruth, totally. Thank you, Rhonda. Dr. Ruth Westheimer, what a character. And she was just hilarious. She was like a comedy act of sex too. And it was more for me, Sue, that was the inspiration, but I do remember Dr. Ruth as well. And a lot of what she had to say was just so practical. It was such pragmatic tools for having pleasure in your body. And what blew me away is that almost every week you were guaranteed to have a similar question come up. It would be a question about somebody squirting, or it would be a question about how do you give a blowjob. And she went through this every week for years and years and years. And I realized that this information is valuable. People need to find this. They want to find it. They want to talk to people about it. They actually want to be heard about what they'd like to do. And she would have people on there talking about, their desires, what they would like to do. How do they ask their girlfriend or boyfriend to do A, B, or C? And she had some interesting things. She was very cool with, reminding people communication. Communication is key. Also, hiccuping over the radio is key as well. And it was functional in that moment. So one of the things that I loved about Sue was also it was between her knowledge, her openness, and she never ever put anybody down for asking the same 5 questions in a row, one after another. She was never like, didn't you listen to the last caller where I answered the same question about blowjobs? She never did that, not once. I never heard her do that once in all the years I listened to her. Her patience is phenomenal, and I think she's still alive, so she may still have that patience, or she could hold that space for those few hours that she was live on the radio, which was amazing. And then she later had a show that was a TV show. So there's something that was so inviting to me to be an educator on sex, an educator on bodies, an educator on pleasure, that I became really fascinated with those topics. And in university, I took bonus classes in like the history of sex and sexuality. I think I learned more from a historical standpoint about lesbians, gays, and bisexuals than I had actually experienced in my life. Like, I had at the time not had any woman-on-woman contact. I hadn't really been introduced to like the queer community, other than my mom had some friends who were gay men who I totally admired and wanted my own gay friends, because I thought then I would be, because it was always, to me, it was like the hot sexy women had gay male friends, and I thought if I had some gay male friends, then I would be hot and sexy too. I have gay male friends now, so my hot factor went up a lot, which is good news. So any of you who are looking for your hot factor to go up, find yourself a gay friend. That's like almost like guaranteed 10 more points on the hot factor. And if there is like a scale, but I think there is, so mine went up 10. And so I was always having that curiosity. So taking classes, learning, listening to Sue, checking things out. Like, I definitely didn't have a shyness around my own body, being pretty familiar with it from a very early age. And I didn't have a shyness around boyfriends either. I was pretty sexually aggressive in high school, maybe even a little threatening. If any of my ex-boyfriends are listening to this show ever, I apologize if I was a little aggressive with you and that was intimidating and scary, or maybe it turned you on. Whatever that was, if it didn't turn you on, I'm sorry. So I didn't have where a lot of I think I had a lot of friends who were either shy to ask, didn't want to ask, didn't know how to ask. It wasn't really so much of an issue for me. So yeah, I wonder, and I wonder still, what can I be and do and choose that would actually allow me to bring some of that just natural curiosity, fantasies that have been boiling and bubbling for like almost 30 years, to allow them to come up to the forefront, to be a sexual educator on in person. And so this is really for me part of what the Adventures in Hedonism will be about. And there'll be classes for couples and classes for individuals, because sometimes there could be couples and you just, not both of them would like to show up, but there's still something for you in it. So it's going to be, there's going to be different classes for different kind of groupings. And I was playing a lot this weekend. I was in the car driving a lot, so I have a lot of time to think and muster up ideas. And one day I'll figure out how to actually turn on my record while I'm driving and not hit anything on the very busy highways of Toronto. And I was coming up with some pretty fun ideas. So I realized that, and you guys might laugh, but I did realize that, holy cow, this show, after 3.5 years of being on, I actually have a wealth of ideas and information that I can actually share with people in person. I know that sounds hilarious that I just figured that out. And I was looking at past shows and looking at how they could contribute to hedonist classes. So I have some exciting things that I'd like to bring to the forefront in person. And I think one of my very favorite shows is one of my very first shows. I think I did within the first 2 or 3 months of being on the air. So I think it was in 2005, maybe. I don't know. When did I start this show? 2014 or 2015. I did have a show that was pretty fun, called Fun for One, and that show, for me, I reference that to a lot of people who are just beginning to have relationships with their bodies, and they're just beginning to stop judging their bodies. And that show for me was something that I had actually done for myself before I brought that exercise out to the world. And so check out that title too in my past episodes from, I think, 2014 or 2015, called Fun for One. I do know the title of it, so you can search Fun for One on inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, and you'll find that come up. And in it is it's like a guided masturbation for those of you who were on the network at the time or listened to the show. It was really funny. The current CEO of this station was really funny about this. And yes, I'm going to reveal secrets right now. But she actually wrote to me after, and she's like, "Man, that show really got me going at night." So I guess in the middle of the night, she was just inspired to test out my guided masturbation. And we've had interesting conversations about stuff like that ever since. And it kind of almost mortified one of our other producers, who now is not so scared of me anymore, which is great. So I thoroughly had fun with that show, and I do know that there's value in becoming familiar with your body. So Fun for One, the guided masturbation using all your senses, was fun and fascinating. And so that's something that I'm going to be introducing, but not just as individuals. So it's going to be introducing it Fun for One with yourself, but with partners, and even in classes with individuals. I think one of the greatest gifts would be to be able to receive bodies whether it's smelling somebody's armpit or their face or their hand, but so that we get over the idea that your genitals are the only things that are sex organs. You are a walking, talking sex organ, from your very tip of your hair blades to the very tip of your toenails. You are a walking, talking, sexy sex goddess and god. You are just like waiting to be awakened. And I am so excited to be offering classes and chances and opportunities for people to step into that. And just as a disclaimer, fair warner, these classes are not in any way affiliated or associated with Access Consciousness or with the mitzvah technique that I teach and facilitate. These are my classes. These are not affiliated. So yes, even though I do teach classes with Access Consciousness, this one is not. So yes, you don't have to say anything about access and sex. This is my own sex cult of creation. If it becomes a sex cult, that would be fantastic. Right now it's me following myself. So I don't know if that constitutes a cult or just another C word. We'll go with maybe I'll have a cult one day. How fun would that be? So, and if you'd like to join my sex cult, excellent. I'm ready. So I am way past my break time, so we're going to head to break now. When we come back, I'm going to give you a little more info, fun on what is going to be in those hedonism classes. What's going to be in them? I'm so excited when we come back from this break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
Are you a subject matter expert? Are you here to share your expertise with an audience waiting to hear from you in only the way you can deliver? Are you ready to have your voice amplified across the airwaves? Inspired Choices Network has a global radio platform streaming to millions of people across the world. Professionally produced and supported by an accomplished team every step of the way, you can broadcast from anywhere in the world, knowing your voice matters, and we ensure it is delivered with ease and efficiency. Eager to hear your message, the world awaits. Contact us today to become an Inspired Choices Network radio host. Email becomeahost@inspiredchoicesnetwork.com.
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight we are talking about hedonism. Why would we do such a silly thing? Well, why not? There's actually some different philosophies of hedonism, so I just wanted to give you guys a little background info. For those of you who are in the know, you might already know this, but there are two types of hedonism. There's egoistic hedonism, which considers only the pleasure of the individual, and then there's altruistic hedonism, which takes into the account that of others. So when I looked that up on the Etymology Online, which is my favorite resource for true meaning of words, that is what it was saying. And so that feels pretty light and true to me. And one of the other things that it had a reference to was, and I may be pronouncing this incorrectly, which doesn't happen all that often, but it may on this account, the sirens. Cyrene, I believe, is how they pronounce it. So the Sirens had maybe they were from some island in Greece, but Sirens had a concept called practical hedonism, and there was a student of Socrates' that was called Aristippus, and he simplified the teachings of Socrates by claiming the highest truth that one could attain was the recognition that pleasure was the purpose of human existence, and the pursuit of pleasure was the meaning of life. I like him. I like what he has to say about that. So how fun is that? Practical hedonism from back in the Greek days, they're claiming that the hedonists produced that idea. And so what is it if you are pursuing pleasure in your life, what else is there? Like, can you be depressed if you are pursuing pleasure? Can you be ill if you're pursuing pleasure? If your body is receiving pleasure, does it have illness? Does it have a lack of ease? These are all curiosities for me, and I think there is a huge element to it that is hugely practical to be seeking pleasure. Our bodies are designed to have responses to different stimuli, sensory reactions to things. They can receive pleasure, and then we also receive intensities that we can refer to as pain. Those same intensities can be highly intense energies that can also be pleasurable, as we see with people who enjoy things like sadomasochism. And there's just like this whole I just got distracted because my lover's in bed with me, but that's all good because I'm thinking hedonism and fun and yum and good times. And my lover's in bed with me. So I'm just going to say that again. Why? Because I usually do my show from my bed. That's right. Where else do you do a show about pleasure? I rarely do it from other locations, sometimes from the place I work out of in Toronto, and on a few occasions from my car, but mostly from my bed, which is practical hedonism for me. It's very pragmatic to be having a sex show from the bed. And so what is actually a hedonist class all about? So I'm more interested in the pursuit of, more like the sirens, more like the pursuit of pleasure as kind of like a lifestyle choice, to actually find one's highest truth through pleasure. That's what I'm curious about. What I've noticed over the last few years, especially since I stepped out of the closet with my curiosity on sex and created this show and let the world know, hey, I like talking about sex. I found that even prior to this, though, people who would come to me for sessions would tend to talk about their sexual stuff, issues with sex, like relationships. That was a tendency that I pulled towards me. And now it's just ramping up. Now I'm getting like emails from people, people maybe from high school, even grade school. I'm getting like true confessions across the board, which I just find amazing. And one of the things that I did find is that when people do allow themselves to have that true confessions, there can be something so magical that opens up for them. So that's another aspect of where the hedonist classes will be going, is really looking at what are some of your deepest, darkest desires that you are afraid to tell the world, or afraid to tell anybody or somebody, period. And I mean, I talk about stuff on this show all the time, so there isn't a lot of deep, dark anything that I haven't like said out loud. And truly one of my greatest fantasy desires is to facilitate sex classes for people. So whether it's like teaching people how to actually like have joy in their bodies or whatever it is, I feel like I do it here on the radio, but I'd also like to do it in person, and that would be so fun to me. So basically I'm living out my great big ask, which is to facilitate and be like the conductor of orgasms for multiple people simultaneously. That would just like excite me so much. So I invite you all to be part of my orchestra when I am conducting orgasms for the world. And oh, like what a joy. How fun would it be to just, it's kind of like truly for me, it's like watching an orchestra. And it's like first the oboe goes off, and wait a second, now all of a sudden the violin goes off, and now there's another one going off and another one, and it's just like all over the place, and it's exciting, and there's like different noises and different levels of intensity and sound, and I think it would be like magical. I'd probably really enjoy the music of conducting orgasms. I think it'd be freaking cool as heck. And it's so fun to me to consider that my body could actually conduct orgasms through having orgasms, to actually gift orgasms out to the world. That's been a fascinating concept to me too. So I'm really looking forward to playing with all of these ideas that I've been keeping in my mind, keeping in my fantasies for like 30 years, and like wondering, how do I bring them out to the world? How do I actually allow other people to receive from them? What can I create that will allow people to choose it, to feel invited, to have them feel like, oh yeah, that's cool, I can choose that. Sure, she's going to conduct orgasms. I can have my clothes off or on. It doesn't matter. There's going to be a conducting of orgasms going on. I'm in. I could be anywhere in the world, but actually you could be anywhere in the world, I suppose. It would just be really fun to have a whole room of people doing it at the same time. That's truly the fantasy I have. And will that ever show up? You never know. It's anything is possible, right? So what else goes on in a class to me has this sense of play and curiosity. So hedonism with pleasure for me is there's this whole kind of energy of innocence and play, and where it's like, hey, look, that's your big toe. I'm going to touch it and I'm going to stroke it. Wow, that gave you an orgasm. Or, oh, can I touch your, butt, or can I hold your boob? Or like, I just like to get away from making it all so very significant, and allowing bodies to just have the pleasure in the way that somebody might have the same kind of hedonistic pleasure of eating really great cake. So I think, to me, the environment will be hedonistic, the food will be hedonistic, the people choosing it will be all about, curiosity and willing to like explore and test out new grounds and speak what they've been holding on to forever. And that's so it's so fun for me to consider that I could be a catalyst. And I know, and I've talked to people about this already, and people have said, yeah, actually, you are a catalyst. You are definitely a catalyst for changing people's, I guess, their sex lives or something. And so I know I have that capacity, and that I'm, really, like, you could tell me any fantasy under the sun, and I'd probably go, hey, that's cool. Wonder how you can get that to show up. And it's they're just not. It's not a big deal to me. So, and I think having a space where everybody in the room, by the end of a 3 or 4 day adventure is so has they've been so willing to just be free of all kinds of moralities that have been put onto them or belief systems that they've bought into. So where they start to shed all of the crap they've been wearing that really stinks, and then their beautiful, self, it's like this scented flower emerges, and they can show up and they can then say whatever it is and be that vulnerability to say whatever it is they desire. And whether anybody chooses to fulfill their great desire, it's allowing them to say it so that they can not feel like they're holding on to that. Holding on to some energies like that can be incredibly exhausting. It can almost be mentally tormenting. If you think, oh my God, if I say this, well, my whole relationship's going to be done or over. They're going to think I'm a freak or a weirdo or blah, blah, blah. I can never say it. And then you hold on to that forever and ever. I'm like, why hold on to it when you can let that energy move, see what'll be created, step into more of you, which is so exciting, and step into the pleasure, the hedonistic wanderers that you are, the pleasure seekers that you are, and bringing all sorts of things of pleasure in, or whether it's, beautiful textures, beautiful things to touch, beautiful things to taste, beautiful, all of those, like inviting all of our senses to have like explosions, like little fireworks going off, and having bodies just be so open. It's like in different so like in Tantra, there's talk about the energies in the body that rise when you're doing tantric practices. You can actually bring up different energies in the body, and so for me, it's like we can bring those up, and we can actually bring those up pretty fast when we're willing to kind of go to our most vulnerable place, which is really finding those things that we've been hiding the most of, or we've locked away in some deep dark cave far, far away because we just thought it was so wrong, but yet it comes up in your mind all the time, kind of haunting your thoughts, and then you judge the crap out of yourself because these thoughts come up. So it'd be really cool to be able to not be judging ourselves on that front and be willing to say what it is that brings pleasure. And for all I know, your fantasy could be having cake smeared all over your body and having tons of people eat it off you. But for you, that might be really naughty and really weird, so you don't want to say it. And I'd be like, hey, cool, let's grab some cake and eat it off this person because that's going to bring them pleasure. How fun is that? And, it's funny because so many times some of these deep, dark, hidden secret things actually are not copulation related. They're so completely different. And so many of them are really about feeling empowered. So, it's funny because I had this conversation. I had a fellow named Alan Jones on my show, and I don't remember, that was 2 years ago, I think. He was on my show, and we were having a discussion about, in Japanese it's called bukkake. We were talking about this experience where a person gets ejaculated on by multiple people. And I was like, yeah, man, that sounds fun. And he was like, yeah, that was like his greatest fantasy. And so every once in a while I'll ask him about that. But whether he's got to fulfill his fantasy or not. And that is, I mean, it's basically you get like human fluids put on your body. There isn't like copulation involved. There isn't like, unless I suppose you have open sores on your body, the chances of STDs spreading are pretty low. But there are some pretty deep, dark, people consider them pretty deep, dark fantasies out there that are actually not even copulation related. They do fall under the sexual category, and they're definitely pleasure related. So pleasure and sex, as you might notice after listening to 100 and over 160 shows of this, pleasure and sex are not always the same thing. They can come together, and you can come together if you like, and they don't have to. It's just like you don't have to come together, and you can come together. Pleasure and sex can, you can just have sex that's not pleasurable. You can have pleasure without sex. Isn't that fascinating? I know. When you really break it down like that. So, yeah, I love this. So naked mud wrestling was an offer by somebody the other day, and I was like, yes, that sounds amazing, actually. So, wow, yummy. Have fun with that. I won't name your name, but have fun with that. That sounds so cool. Yeah, getting some like super cool muds. It's kind of like going out to a spa and getting your body covered in mud, but way more fun if you're like naked with other people getting covered in mud. Heck, have fun with that. What else is possible for pleasure and joy? And just like we have bodies, let's enjoy them. And one of the other things about enjoying them, and I want to talk a little bit more about this after the break, is worshiping bodies. Oh, yeah, man, that brings up some stuff. So, I'll let you guys think about the worshiping of bodies and having your body worshipped as we head to this commercial break.
Many of us have created a lot of limitations around sex and what we are willing to choose. What else is possible beyond what we have already seen, heard, or thought of? What if now is the time for a totally different sexual revolution, taking the taboo out of all aspects of sex, sexuality, and copulation by tuning in to the Pleasure Zone radio show with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. You'll receive tools, inspiration, and a foundation to allow yourself to receive more in your sex life and quite possibly other areas of your life as well. Listen for the Pleasure Zone with Milica every Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central Time, 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and 5 p.m. Pacific Time on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
What would you say if I told you that you could change your life in only 1 hour and all while lying down relaxing? Thousands of people all over the world have. What am I talking about? It's called Access Consciousness, the bars. The bars is an energetic body process that contains 32 different points on your head that when run assist you in releasing decisions about any area of your life that you have made solid and as a result cannot change. The bars is the first class in Access Consciousness, a dynamic set of tools and information designed to transform any area of your life. When you have a bars session, the worst that can happen is you feel like you had a fantastic massage. The best thing that can happen is your whole life could change. Go to accessconsciousness.com today to find a facilitator to schedule a private session or to find a bars class in your area. Are you willing to give yourself an hour to change your life?
This is the Pleasure Zone with body whisperer Milica Jelenic. To participate in the program today, please call in the U.S. Call 815-880-8255. That's TALK. Or Canada 613-800-8736. Or you can Skype us at Inspired Choices Network. You can also make the choice to ask or comment by email at milicajelenic.com. Now back to the program.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Pleasure Zone. I'm your host, Milica Jelenic, and tonight we're talking about hedonism. we're talking about hedonism because I'm going to be creating classes in the very near future, likely coming in spring of 2018 to a town near you. There's going to be hedonism for couples, hedonism for individuals as well. Classes are going to have lots of things that we've been talking about in this program today, and so much more. I have so many fun ideas planned for these classes. I just have to write them all down and realize that it's probably going to be a month, full-on month of hedonism, possible levels of hedonism. We'll see what shows up. One of the things that I am really excited to invite people into is being worshipped. Yeah, doesn't that sound fun? How much does your body light up with the thought of it being worshipped? You know, in so many cultures, gods and goddesses get worshipped. There are temples made to them. There are, and offerings given to them. So, yes, I have some plans that I'm gathering in my creative energies about what that would be like. What would it be like for you to be in front of a room of people that you know or don't know, and that they are observing your body, whether it's with clothes on or half naked or fully naked? I think my classes will be clothing optional because, quite frankly, I like naked bodies. And for me, there's like something about being witnessed as a sexy, sensual, scrumptious being, and having people enjoy your body and be turned on by your body, that it can like explode your life open. For people who have not felt attractive or sexy or loved or any of those things, like, it shuts you down. It shuts you down big, my friends. And when you are being witnessed as sexy or sensual, yes, it's a judgment, and receive it. Receive that judgment. And how much fun can it be to receive that judgment of somebody observing your vulva and going, wow, look at the beauty of that looks like a lovely orchid flower petal, or love your pubic mound, it's so lovely and full, or like you have magical nipples. I'm actually going to have a woman on my show sometime by the end of December, and she's reclaiming tits, and she invited me onto like a thing that she's doing about reclaiming tits, not just reclaiming our own tits, but reclaiming the word tits, and just a bunch of beautiful women with beautiful tits, showing them off, and everybody's complimenting them. And I think there's such magic in that too. So I think women complimenting women, men complimenting women, women complimenting men, men complimenting men, like, how much can we break down the barriers of bullshit and limitations of sexuality that we have in place when we can witness, and we can witness, like my friend Megan Solito says, like, witnessing can just can change worlds. Those aren't her exact words, but when she has people witness each other's potency, it changes worlds. And so thank you, Megan Solito. You can listen to her and her lover Suzanne's show, Love, Life, and All Things Weird, on this network as well, Inspired Choices Network. And so witnessing to me is a little bit like worshiping, with a lot more words and a lot more maybe touch. But ultimately it's like acknowledging the beauty, the power, the potency, the yumminess, all of it, all of that we've been missing. And I, for one, find it intimidating and a little bit scary. So I'm really looking forward to the idea of having my body be witnessed and worshipped. Yeah, it's funny. It's going to be so I'm going to be doing that for me first before I'm bringing it to the world. So yes, joining the Reclaiming the Tits is part of it, and I'm going to see where it goes from there to see where else I'll allow my body to be witnessed and basically judged as sexy or not sexy, but willing to receive that and see what shows up from there. And for me, my boobs are a really vulnerable part of me. I would probably show off my vulva before I show off my boobs. So it's huge for me, actually. So it's very fun, and I'm so glad I was invited to that, so that I can actually step into more of being able to bring hedonism to the world and hedonism classes to the world. And just, what would it be like if, here you are, maybe sitting in front of a room full of beautiful beings, beautiful people who, legs wide open, vulva to the world, and you've got people gifting beautiful words, maybe a song, maybe sweet treats and gifts to your vulva. When you look at different ancient cultures, they worshipped the vulva. They worshipped the yoni and the phallus. The yoni and the lingam were worshipped. Milk was poured on the lingam down to the yoni. There were ceremonies done with yonis all over the world. Fertility goddesses, representing their fertility by holding their labia open to the world, showing their potency with allowing their vulva to be witnessed and worshipped and admired and longed for and craved, all of those things. Like, it's so, oh man, it's kind of like a mineral I've been missing in my body for a very long time, and I'm so excited that I get to start choosing that, the willingness to be worshipped. So how many of us out there know that somewhere deep down we want to be goddesses, we want to be gods, and we're still afraid to be worshipped? So if you don't have somebody in your life who will worship the beauty of your body and treat, your vulva or your penis like a golden rod of delight, and your vulva like a golden vessel of holding, the juices of the universe. If you don't have people who are willing to do that for you, please go find somebody who is, and invite them into play and worship their body and see what that shows up as, and worship yours as well. Like, what would it be like to gift your yoni a gift? Just how fun would that be? Yoni, vulva, whatever you want to call her, pussy. What if you just gift her a gift today? What gift could you gift your vulva? What gift would you gift your lingam that would actually invite more pleasure to your body? It's just like fun. I don't even know what mine is, and I'm going to go probably this week and find a gift for my yoni. I'm just like excited. My yoni has a yoni egg. What else would she like? She's got some vibrators hanging around, but my yoni might like something else. She might like a diamond ring. I don't know. We're going to find out, because my yoni knows stuff. And I'm just so excited. And so if you'd like to know more about these classes coming up, if you go on to my mailing list, so if you go to my website, milicajelenic.com, and you go and sign up for my mailing list, I will be sending an email out very shortly where you'll be invited into the naughty list. And once the naughty list is created, there will be emails being sent out all about hedonism and all the other things I will be inviting other people to co-create with me, involving hedonism and pleasure for couples, for individuals, because I know I'm not the only one who knows about this, and I know this information is excited to come out to the world. So have fun worshiping bodies in your body this week, guys, and add a little more hedonism. It's a practical thing to your life, And let's make it altruistic and share it with the world. And let's make it part of our lifestyles just because we can, right? So have so much fun with that. Check me out on Facebook if you have time this week and see what I'm posting. Have a great week until next week.
Thank you for choosing to listen to The Pleasure Zone. Milica Jelenic will return next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central, 6 p.m. Mountain, and 5 p.m. Pacific on InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. We hope you'll join us. Until then, have the best week of your life by choosing to be turned on and tuned in to your body.